Hey y'all, what is up and what is good, and welcome back to another phenomenal episode of Dreams and Visions. It's me, your host, Courtney, and today I'm going to tell you guys about a dream that I had very recently, meaning a couple of days ago, and this is how it went. So I was coming back from a concert, right? And the concert, if you are curious as to who was performing, it was Bryson Tiller and, of course, my favorite artist, Brent Faiyaz. And I believe that was just a small sign from God that they need to hurry up and collaborate. But only real fans will know what I'm talking about. But that's besides the point. So I make it home and whatnot, and instantly I feel like something is completely off. I walk inside the house and the atmosphere, it feels completely shallow, dark, empty, and it felt as if something was in there that didn't belong. And so I go look for my siblings to tell them hi and what's up, and I go inside the living room, which is where they're at, and I instantly notice that they look blank, like their faces are completely blank. They look so shook, as if they seen something that completely petrified them to the point where they had like no emotion left. They were just sitting there with blank faces, and it made me very worried. And so me, of course, I tried to get their attention, like, hey guys, I'm home, like, what's up, what's happening? And it's like they jumped a little bit once they saw me, and they were like, oh, as if they, snapped back into reality. And I'm like, are y'all good? And they're like, oh yeah, we're good. And so I noticed that the TV was off and everything. And so I'm like, that's unusual because, mind you, all my siblings are younger than me. And so I'm expecting them to watch something on TV that's probably on like Netflix or something like that. And so I asked them like, hey, do you guys want to watch some TV or something? Because it seems like you haven't been doing so. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't mind. But it's like the responses were just so blank and it had like no feeling to it. And so I'm like, this is weird. But I go get the remote, and surprisingly, as soon as I touch it, the whole entire TV explodes, literally. Nothing catches on fire, but the TV is completely destroyed. And so I run to go see what happened to the TV, and then I hear something else break. And then I run to the other thing that broke, and then something else breaks. And so I'm like, what's going on? Like, is this some kind of setup or prank? And like all of a sudden things just start to fly around and break and, become destroyed. And so for me, I'm scared, like, this is off. This is wrong. Like something bad is happening. And it didn't feel like an earthquake because, the ground wasn't shaking. So I'm like, this has to be something more, something deeper. And so my natural instinct as the child is to still go run and find my parents to see if they can help out in some kind of way. And so I ended up finding them in the kitchen. But here's the thing. When I looked both of my parents in their eyes, I instantly knew like there was also something wrong with my parents themselves, because I looked in their eyes and they were completely soulless. Like there was no emotion, no nothing, just blank faces. And I'm like, what is going on? And so as I'm trying to explain to these two beings, because at this point, they weren't my real parents. They were something else pretending to be my parents. They were using my parents' looks as their makeup to cover up what they truly were, which were probably demons. They were probably demons. And so I tell these two beings like, hey, there's something wrong. Everything's flying around. I'm scared. My siblings are scared. Like, what do we need to do? And they tell me to just go sit down, shut up, and don't worry about it. And they said it in the most coldest way that I'm like, something's wrong with y'all. And so as I'm in the kitchen trying to figure out what's going on, the oven starts blowing up, the kitchen and everything just starts to go crazy. Like everything is just out of hand. The microwave blows out. Like at this point, I was concerned. I was so scared that I dropped on my knees. And I started praying. But it's like my spirit for some reason felt so empty, so weak that I couldn't even find the means to do so. And so I got up and I had a feeling to go inside my room to, hopefully get some kind of peace, like gain some kind of peace and, clarity on what's happening. And so I go inside my room, and then God tells me to stop. He's like, you need to go back. But I'm like, I don't know about all that. Like, God, with all this stuff happening, I think I should stay in here. But God's like, go back. But I didn't listen to God. Instead, I listened to myself, which is what caused what was about to happen next. So as I, disobeyed God and I continued to walk into my room, I noticed that my closet didn't have a door and it was wide open. And like they do in the horror movies, instead of going back, I decided to quote unquote explore and investigate and see what was going on. Now I was still scared, but I'm like, this couldn't be that bad. And so I'm creeping, walking, trying to see what's in the closet, and there just ended up being some dirty laundry. But then on top of all that laundry, I saw this stuffed animal that was my sister's actually, and it was a cat. Now, the stuffed animal cat was pink and white, very kid-friendly, all that. But when I saw its face, instantly I became disturbed because the face, it wasn't a normal face, for a stuffed animal, and it scared the living crap out of me, to say the least. And so something inside of me, made me just grab its face for whatever reason, and I instantly felt myself become possessed with something. So it felt like I had another being inside of me. And so at this point, I am scared. I am fearing for my life. And as I'm trying to run out my room, I feel this being inside of me trying to pull me back in. But it's like I'm fighting not only with my flesh, but with another spirit. And so I'm personally trying to run out my room, and I feel this demon trying to pull me back in. And so I somehow gain the composure to finally run out. But I look on the floor, and I see my shadow. And what scared me is the fact that I saw horns coming out of the head of my shadow, which instantly told me that, yep, there's something inside of me that does not belong. And so despite everything I said about my parents, or the people who I thought were my parents, it's my natural instinct as a child to just run to them in, times like this. And so I do so. And again, they just told me to shut up, it'll be okay, and stop worrying about it. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And so after that, I hear my little brother crying, like screaming and crying. And so at this point, I'm in survival mode. I'm like, I need to step up because obviously there's something going on that I still don't have a full understanding of, but I need to do something. And so I run straight to my brother, and he's on the floor just crying his eyes out. And I look at him and I see that there's this skinny stick just stabbed inside of his knee. And that scared me. But, again, I had to woman up and help him. And so before I could even try to figure out how I can get this thing out without hurting him even worse, this being who was dressed up as my mom comes in and just takes these tweezers and just yanks it out my brother's knee. And at this point, he's crying. And the being just walks away as if it doesn't even matter. And so I'm having to embrace my brother, make him feel better, stop him from crying and all that other stuff. And so eventually my brother calms down and whatnot. And so I set him on the couch, and my siblings, they're looking at me and they're like, Renee, we're scared. We don't know what to do. We don't think that's our mommy and daddy and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. And so my brother, he's looking at me, and he's the youngest out of everybody. Like, he's 5. And so he's looking at me with his little innocent eyes, and he's like, well, can you play a game with me? And for some reason that just hit me in a way that I've never felt before. And it made me completely emotional because, I don't know, his innocence is what made me just feel some kind of way. Like, despite what's going on, he was still thinking about, hey, like, let's play a game, let's do something, despite the craziness that's going on around us. But after that, I woke up, and that was the end of my dream. Due to what kind of dream I had, I instantly, went on my Bible app. I spent like 5 to 10 minutes just looking on there, reading some Bible verses. Then, of course, I prayed. I listened to some gospel music for an hour or two. And so I just really need to cleanse my spirit because, that dream was very heavy. I will say that. And it was emotional. And so with all that good stuff being said, the point of today's message is to let this generation, along with my young peers, understand that the demonic and spiritual realm, it exists. These demonic forces out here that live amongst us, they're real. They exist. They're out there. Heck, some of them are not even trying to hide anymore. Some of them are right in your face. Right in your face, literally. And if you try to turn a blind eye to what's going on, it's not going to help you. It's only going to harm you. The only way to properly defeat these things and these demonic forces that are out here and that exists is by not only having full trust and faith in Jesus Christ and knowing that he's by your side along with all his angels, but most importantly having the word of God on you like it's a strap, because it is the weapon, the scriptures. That is your spiritual weapon. That is your form of self-defense. So learn how to use it, even if that means taking 5 minutes a day or night to look over a Bible verse. You're already giving your spirit and your soul something that it needs to become stronger, just as you would with your physical flesh and body when it comes to eating healthy, drinking water, and exercising. This message and dream is not to scare you, but it's to help you, all right? And because, I've been through stuff like this, I just want to help warn you guys about these things, because I know how it is. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're immune to these things, but it can make you stronger if you put your full faith in God and use his words to help protect yourself from these things. I will say that every warrior goes through trials and tribulations, but what makes them stronger is by training, by working hard, by learning how to properly defend themselves. That's what makes a true warrior a warrior, and true warriors are brave. They're brave and they're bold and they're not afraid to do what they need to do to help their people or to help themselves. And I know we live in a time and age where people like to make fun of the things that I'm talking about. But if you want to be saved from these things, if you want to be protected from these things, if you believe me, then I'm telling you to get to know God and know how good of a father he is and how much he can help you in your life. But that is the end of today's message. Much peace and love as always. I hope it helped out anybody that needs to hear it. But I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.